Welcome to the History in Focus channel. Be sure to subscribe so you don't miss more videos like this one. In the 1960s, some airlines offered bassinets attached to the overhead luggage compartments for babies on long flights. Secured by brackets, they allowed parents to rest while their children slept. Waterproof fabric suits were invented in the United States in 1948. The idea was to combine elegance and practicality, allowing men and women to dress well without worrying about the rain. Annie Edson Taylor, at 63 years old, became the first person to survive a trip over Niagara Falls inside a barrel in 1901. Seeking fame and fortune, she accomplished the feat on Independence Day. In 1971, a prankster altered the famous Hollywood sign. The change was made by covering parts of the letters with fabric, referencing a new California law that relaxed restrictions on a particular substance. In the 1930s, flour mills noticed that women were using sacks to make clothes for their children. To help, they started producing sacks with floral prints and even sewing instructions. A dog wears a helmet and sunglasses, while a German soldier adjusts a rifle in its paws in the early 1940s. The light-hearted scene contrasts with the military setting in the background. A 14-year-old American girl straightens her hair using an iron, a popular method in the 1960s before electric flat irons became common. Niagara Falls completely frozen in 1911. The harsh winter transformed the waterfall into a frozen landscape, allowing visitors to walk across the frozen riverbed. A bride walks among the rubble of her home destroyed by bombings in London on November 4, 1940. Amid World War II, she moves determinedly towards her wedding. Cars parked at the Track restaurant in Los Angeles in the 1950s receive food via a conveyor belt. This innovative system allowed customers to be served directly inside their vehicles. Before computers, airline reservations were recorded manually, as seen in this scene from 1945. An employee updates a massive schedule board, while another answers calls to organize passengers' travel plans. Professional diver Courtney Brown pulls a 16-foot model of the Titanic. The replica was used for visual recreations of the famous shipwreck, aiding in studies and productions about the disaster. Isaac Newton Cyber rides in a cart pulled by an ostrich in 1920. The scene was captured as a postcard at Coston Ostrich Farm, a popular attraction in South Pasadena, California. Beach patrols inspect the length of women's swimsuits in the 1920s. As there were strict dress codes, women could be fined or expelled from the beach for wearing inappropriate clothing. A woman uses a phone installed in a Mercedes-Benz in the 1960s. Considered a luxury at the time, the device operated via radio and was accessible only to a limited number of users due to its high cost. An innovative 1960s helmet with a built-in communication tube, allowing motorcyclists to talk directly to passengers without shouting against the wind. Walt Disney interacts with a cat while holding a drawing of Mickey Mouse. The 1931 photo captures Disney promoting his iconic character in a casual setting. A vertical parking garage in New York, 1930. To deal with limited space and the growing number of cars, mechanical systems stacked vehicles, optimizing urban area usage. Marilyn Monroe kicks off a soccer match in England in 1957. Wearing an elegant dress, she catches the attention of the players and the audience, making the event even more memorable. A group of soldiers performs a wheelie with a car during an event in 1936, in what is considered the oldest documented photo of such a stunt. The scene catches the attention of spectators on the streets. A boy, with his head bandaged, writes "liar" on the wall of a dentist's office that advertised itself as painless in the 1920s. His discontent makes it clear that the experience was not as smooth as promised. The Great Blizzard of North Dakota in 1966. The storm covered the region in snow so deep that telephone poles were partially buried, creating an astonishing scene and making transportation difficult for days. Among the ruins of London in 1940, a milkman walks with his delivery as if nothing had changed. Amid the Blitz bombings, daily life continues, showing the resilience of Londoners during the war. Before GPS, drivers could get directions by phone, with operators consulting maps to provide detailed routes. This service was popular in busy cities like London in 1963. Before alarm clocks became widespread, knocker-ups walked the streets, tapping on customers' windows to wake them up. This service was common in Britain and Ireland between the 19th and mid-20th centuries. A man holds a punt gun, a large shotgun used for duck hunting. This weapon could kill over 50 birds with a single shot and was banned in the late 1860s. Two female ice delivery workers carry a large block of ice in September 1918. Before electric refrigeration, ice was essential for preserving food, and many women took on this job during World War I. A young woman walks along the Miami shoreline in the 1940s, wearing a short, modern swimsuit for the time. Sitting nearby, another woman dressed in longer clothing watches, highlighting the change in beach fashion. Robin Williams joins the Denver Broncos cheerleaders in 1979. Dressed in the full uniform, the actor participated in the performance as part of a comedic sketch for the television series Mork and Mindy. Alfred Hitchcock meets Leo the Lion, the MGM Studios mascot, in 1957. Known for his aversion to interviews, Hitchcock playfully poses in front of the iconic roaring feline, a multifunctional unit from 1951 combining a television, radio, and built-in bar. The concept aimed to bring convenience and sophistication to homes, allowing hosts to entertain guests without missing their favorite shows. French men at a cafe watch curiously as a bottle of Coca-Cola is served. The soft drink, still a novelty in the country, sparks expressions of skepticism and surprise in the early 1950s. Girls using portable dressing booths to change clothes on a public beach in 1929. These contraptions provided privacy for putting on swimsuits in places without proper changing rooms. Elvis Presley autographs a piece of paper resting on a boy's head as fans watch in Germany, 1959. During his military service in the country, the star remained surrounded by admirers wherever he went. This 1897 photo shows a little girl being pulled in a small cart by an alligator. At the time, exotic attractions like this were common in zoos and parks, where wild animals were used in unusual ways. Elvis Presley takes the oath as a soldier in the United States Army on March 24, 1958. Already a global star, his enlistment caused a sensation, but he served like any other recruit, spending 2 years on active duty. During Prohibition, bootleggers wore shoes with soles shaped like cow hooves to hide footprints and throw off authorities, making it harder to locate illegal distilleries. Colonel Sanders prepares his famous fried chicken in 1969 in Nashville, Tennessee. The founder of KFC popularized the secret recipe with 11 herbs and spices, turning his small business into a global empire. Harvey Ball, a graphic designer, created the famous smiley face in the 1960s for a corporate campaign. The symbol became a universal icon of positivity, appearing on stickers, t-shirts, and advertisements. Motorcycle chariot races in Australia, 1930s. Inspired by ancient Roman competitions, this sport emerged in the United States in 1922 and gained popularity after the 1925 film Ben-Hur, spreading to Australia and Europe. Men celebrate the end of Prohibition in the United States in 1933, when the alcohol ban was lifted after 13 years. Bars reopened legally, and scenes like this were repeated across the country, marking the return of alcoholic beverages. Audrey Hepburn strolls through a market accompanied by her unusual pet, a fawn named Pippin. The actress adopted the young deer after filming Green Mansions, and it became her inseparable companion. Billy Bomar and Uva Kimmey of Howard Flying Circus walk on the wings of a biplane while it flies over New York in 1930. The group was famous for daring aerial stunts that defied gravity. James Naismith, the inventor of basketball, holds a ball and a basket used in the game in 1939. Created in 1891 to keep athletes active during the winter, the sport evolved into one of the most popular worldwide. Skaters parade through the streets of New York in the 1940s, holding a sign encouraging the use of skates to save gasoline. During the war, campaigns like this promoted alternatives to reduce fuel consumption. A foreign boy learns to use a bow under the guidance of Kenyan warriors, while in another photo, he returns the favor by teaching a Kenyan boy how to hold a baseball bat. In 1962, acrobats balance atop the Empire State Building in New York during the 1930s. Amid the Great Depression, performances like this served as entertainment to distract people from the hardships of the time. The chimpanzee Ham poses for a photo after successfully returning from space in 1961. As part of the Mercury program, he was the first hominid to travel beyond Earth, helping pave the way for human flights. Fanny Cochran Smith, a Tasmanian Aboriginal woman, records traditional songs on a phonograph in 1903. Her recordings are the only surviving audio evidence of the Tasmanian language, preserving a nearly extinct cultural legacy. Photographers rarely visited frontier families, but when they did, the residents made sure to pose to showcase prosperity. The house was carved into the hillside, and a cow grazes on top. Two Japanese women pinch their noses while holding a picture of Winston Churchill in an anti-British propaganda campaign. During World War II, posters like this were used to ridicule enemy leaders. Madame de Courcelles became the first female taxi driver in Paris in 1909. At a time when few women drove, she defied norms and navigated the streets of the French capital behind the wheel of her taxi. Students at McKinley High School in Chicago are sent home in 1946 for wearing pants and jeans, violating the dress code. Wearing traditionally male clothing was considered inappropriate for girls at the time. John D. Rockefeller, then one of the richest men in the world with a fortune of approximately $1.4 billion, hands a 5-cent coin to a child in 1929, a symbolic gesture he frequently made. The director of the Belgrade Zoo attempts to convince a runaway chimpanzee to come down from a rooftop in 1988. The animal, appearing thoughtful, observes the offer as the unusual negotiation unfolds high above the city. Nurses hold newborn triplets while a shocked father appears to faint upon seeing them in a New York hospital in 1946. The unexpected arrival of 3 babies at once clearly caught him by surprise. Cairo Mary, a bouncer at Shanghai Red's Bar in San Pedro, California, escorts a customer out in 1953. Known for her strength and personality, she was feared by those who crossed the line at the famous establishment. Samuel Reshevsky, at 8 years old, plays multiple chess masters simultaneously in 1920. Considered a prodigy, he was already challenging top players of the time, impressing with his talent and strategy. Winston Churchill, sitting in a military vehicle, accepts a light from a smiling man in the crowd. The British Prime Minister, always with his iconic cigar, shares a casual moment in the midst of the war. Charles Thompson greets his new classmates at Public School No. 27 in September 1954, just months after the Supreme Court declared racial segregation unconstitutional. He was the only African-American child at the school. This is Robert Wadlow, the tallest man who ever lived. Born in 1918, he reached an astonishing height of 8 feet 11 inches due to uncontrolled growth caused by hyperplasia of the pituitary gland. Rush hour in Rome, 1959. Amid the chaotic traffic of the Italian capital, a driver steps out of his car and gestures impatiently, capturing the expressive and lively spirit of Italians. The quality control room at EMI around 1965. A worker inspects the Beatles' vinyl records, ensuring each copy meets standards before reaching the stores. A driving candidate takes a test in a simulator in Hungary in the 1980s. Systems like these helped assess beginner drivers using rudimentary technology before real-world practice. Behind the scenes of the Batman TV series from 1966 show Adam West and Burt Ward filming an iconic scene. To create the illusion of climbing buildings, the production used simple tricks, like tilting the camera and a painted backdrop. Albert Einstein and his wife Elsa visit the Hopi tribe at the Grand Canyon, Arizona, in 1931. During the trip, Einstein learned about local customs and observed cultural performances by indigenous people. A woman and a child ride a ski lift without any safety bars in Jackson, Wyoming in 1965. At the time, regulations were less strict, and scenes like this were common at ski resorts and tourist parks. Inventor Alan Hazard tests his experimental lunar suit in a lava crater in the Mojave Desert in 1962. The innovative design included oxygen and food supplies, simulating conditions for future space missions. A family poses for a photo wearing masks during the Spanish flu pandemic in 1918. Even the pet cat appears masked, reflecting the widespread concern about virus transmission at the time. Two women exchange boxing blows on a rooftop, while others watch in 1938. The unusual scene shows the growing female interest in sports at the time, challenging traditional norms. Sigourney Weaver poses for her high school yearbook photo in 1967 with the caption, "Please God, please don't let me be normal." Years later, she would become a film icon in Alien and other hits. A woman holds a sign warning beachgoers with the message, "You're going to hell," on Miami Beach in the 1980s. Meanwhile, people continue enjoying the sun without paying much attention to the protest. Lyndon B. Johnson gestures and shouts at nearby pilots to turn off their engines so John F. Kennedy can speak in 1960. Beside him, JFK tries to calm him down during the presidential campaign. A teenager, with the help of his friends, balances himself to deliver flowers to Princess Diana in 1989. Smiling, she receives the bouquet while military personnel watch the scene with amusement. Big J. McNeely plays his saxophone lying on the stage while fans cheer at a concert in Los Angeles in 1951. Known for his energy and theatrical performances, McNeely captivated audiences with his passionate jazz performances. Children wear minobashi, traditional straw rain capes, while walking through the snow to a New Year's event in Niigata Prefecture, Japan, in 1956. Vicki Dugan walks the streets of Hollywood in the 1950s wearing a backless black dress, catching the attention of passers-by. Known for her daring dresses, she earned the nickname The Back at the time. Nikola Tesla watches from his laboratory in Colorado Springs in 1899. The sign at the entrance warns of great danger and advises people to stay away due to his experiments. Marilyn Monroe sits atop an M29 Pershing tank during her visit to American troops in the Korean War in 1954. Her tour lifted the morale of soldiers and attracted huge crowds wherever she went. Cyclists smoke cigarettes while riding during the 1927 Tour de France. At the time, it was believed that smoking could help with breathing during exertion, and it was common to see competitors lighting up. The enormous 5-megabyte IBM computer being delivered in 1956 required an entire team for transport. At the time, this storage capacity was revolutionary, but today it would fit easily on a simple USB flash drive. In the 1980s, recording cassette tapes was common for preserving live music. This man, with a boombox strapped to his chest, tries to capture the sound at a festival when concert recordings were rare and valuable. Arnold Schwarzenegger, at 16 years old, in his first bodybuilding competition. Determined to become the best, he already displayed impressive muscle mass, beginning his journey to becoming a sports legend. Queen Elizabeth and Marilyn Monroe shake hands at a film premiere in London in 1956. Both were 30 years old at the time, each at the peak of their careers, one as a monarch and the other as a Hollywood star. This photo shows the tombs of a couple of different religious faiths, united by a symbolic gesture. The woman was Catholic and the husband was Protestant. The monument was built in the Netherlands in 1888. Bill Gates, then a young entrepreneur on the rise, was arrested in 1977 for driving without a license in Albuquerque, New Mexico. At the time, he was already working on developing Microsoft, the company that would revolutionize personal computing. Arnold Schwarzenegger on his first visit to New York in 1968, just a few years after leaving Austria to pursue a bodybuilding career. He marvels at the city while holding a camera, documenting his new life in the United States. A coffee pot-shaped truck used to promote Gevalia coffee in Sweden in 1950. The unusual design stood out on the streets, helping advertise the coffee brand with creative marketing campaigns of the time. A double-decker bus tilt test in London, 1933. This procedure demonstrated the vehicle's stability and ensured it would not pose a rollover risk on the city's streets. Elvis Presley riding his 1972 Harley-Davidson Electra Glide. Known for his love of motorcycles, he frequently cruised around Memphis in style, always accompanied by friends and fans. A young woman bends backward, overwhelmed by emotion, during an Elvis Presley concert at the Philadelphia Arena on April 6, 1957. Meanwhile, other fans react in different ways to the spectacle. BBC sound effects technicians work with improvised objects in 1927 to create realistic sounds for radio programs. Before the digital era, they used common items to simulate gunshots, thunder, and footsteps. Republicans and Democrats exchanged snowballs in front of the Capitol in Washington in January 1921. Amid the presidential transition, the game was a light-hearted break from the political tensions of the time. A massive showroom truck was built for the Helsinki Auto Show in 1927. Designed to promote Rio vehicles, the booth caught attention even before visitors entered the event. A soldier reunites with his daughter, arms wide open, after returning from World War II in 1945. Thousands of families were reunited during this period after years of separation due to the global conflict. Wearing two different sneakers, one larger than the other, Jim Thorpe competed in the 1912 Olympics after having his shoes stolen. Even so, the Native American athlete won 2 gold medals in track and field. Chaos took over the streets of Sweden on the first morning after the country switched its traffic direction from left to right in 1967. The event required months of preparation, yet it still caused confusion on the roads. Waitresses served French fries at a street cafe in newly liberated Paris in the 1940s. The scene reflects the relief and joy of Parisians after years of occupation as the city returned to normal life. A 10-round boxing match took place aboard the USS New York in 1899 on the anniversary of the Battle of Santiago, Cuba. The event was organized to entertain the crew, who watched the fight held on the ship's deck. First-class air travel in the 1960s offered luxury and unmatched comfort. Spacious seats, lounges, and a sophisticated atmosphere were part of the flying experience when air travel was still a special event for the elite. Arnold Schwarzenegger between Wilt Chamberlain and Andre the Giant on the set of Conan the Destroyer in 1984. Despite his impressive physique, Arnold looks small next to the two giants. Ronald Reagan poses at the University of Southern California in 1940. Chosen by the Fine Arts Department as the ideal male physique, he served as a model for sculptures while building his acting career. George H.W. Bush pins the officer insignia on his son, George W. Bush, on his Texas Air National Guard uniform in 1968. The moment marked the start of the future U.S. president's military career. Steve McQueen meets Jane Mansfield in the early 1960s. The actor, known for his passion for racing, crosses paths with the Hollywood star at an automotive event. A crowded beach in Atlantic City, 1908. The destination was one of the most popular on the East Coast of the United States, attracting crowds with its boardwalk, casinos, and summer atmosphere. Archaeologists dine inside Pharaoh Ramses Finton's tomb in 1923. During excavations in Egypt, it was common for researchers to set up rest areas within archaeological sites. A soldier peels onions while testing his gas mask at Camp Kearney, San Diego, in 1918. Gas masks were essential for protection against chemical attacks, and unusual tests like this helped verify their effectiveness. The winner of the Scariest Woman in the United Kingdom contest in 1883 poses for a photo with boxing gloves. The competition highlighted women with strong personalities and intimidating presence, challenging societal norms. The eyes of Mount Rushmore were sculpted using chisels, hammers, and pneumatic tools. To give them depth and brightness, strategic holes were drilled, reflecting natural light. President Harry Truman leads an exercise session on the deck of the USS Missouri in 1947. Known for his disciplined routine, Truman encouraged physical activity even during official trips aboard the battleship. The original plan for Mount Rushmore included the presidents with carved torsos. Time, budget constraints, and technical difficulties led to the final version with only their heads sculpted into the mountain. Muhammad Ali taunts Joe Frazier outside the training center before their iconic fight of the century in 1971. The showdown between the two boxers was one of the most anticipated in boxing history. Several police officers surround Mike Tyson after the fight against Evander Holyfield in 1996 in Las Vegas. The match was marked by Tyson's disqualification after he bit his opponent's ear. The Beatles posed playfully with Muhammad Ali in 1964 during a meeting before the boxers' fight against Sonny Liston. At the time, Ali was still known as Cassius Clay, and the Beatles were at the peak of Beatlemania. The Beatles' moments before the famous Abbey Road album cover photo was taken. Captured in 1969, the image became one of the most iconic in music history, showing the band crossing the London crosswalk. Fred Rogers, a children's TV host, sat next to Francois Clemens, the first black actor to have a regular role on his show, and together they placed their feet in a pool, challenging racial segregation in 1969. A hippie father walks with his daughter in Amsterdam in 1968. The movement, which promoted peace, love, and freedom, was growing in Europe, influencing fashion, music, and protests against the Vietnam War and traditional norms. Members of the band Kiss stand next to their parents in 1976. At their peak, the group was known for their striking makeup and theatrical performances, while their families presented a stark contrast to rock extravagance. Musicians from the official band of the Michelin Hour radio show performed dressed as the Michelin mascot in 1928. The variety show was a marketing strategy by the company to promote its brand to the public. A Victorian house is transported by horses in San Francisco, California, in 1908. With urban expansion, entire structures were relocated to new sites in a labor-intensive but common process at the time. Princess Fatemeh Khanum, daughter of King Nasir al-Din Shah Qajar, was a symbol of beauty in Persia in the early 1900s. Her style and influence reflected the aesthetic standards of the Qajar dynasty, which ruled from 1848 to 1896. Jack the Baboon worked for 9 years on the South African railway system in the late 19th century. He assisted his amputee owner by operating track switches with precision and never made a mistake. During a flood in Paris in 1924, residents improvised a bridge with chairs to cross the flooded streets. Balance was essential, and any misstep meant ending up in the water. Walt Disney records Mickey Mouse's voice alongside Clarence Nash, the legendary voice of Donald Duck, in 1945. For years, Disney himself provided the voice for his most famous character. Western star Monty Montana Lassos, President Dwight Eisenhower during the inaugural parade in January 1953. The unexpected act amused the audience and became a memorable moment in the presidential ceremony. Pierre Elliott Trudeau, then Prime Minister of Canada, carries his son Justin Trudeau under his arm in Ottawa in 1973. Years later, Justin would follow in his father's footsteps, becoming Prime Minister. Margaret Gorman, 16 years old, wins the first Miss America pageant in Atlantic City in 1921. Created to boost summer tourism, it awarded the winner the title of Golden Mermaid and $100. Princess Diana broke royal protocol by participating in a race during Prince William's school sports day. Barefoot, she ran alongside other mothers, demonstrating her spontaneous nature. Princess Diana dances with John Travolta at a White House dinner in 1985. Wearing an elegant blue dress, she glides across the floor to the sound of "You Should Be Dancing," a song from the Saturday Night Fever soundtrack. Margaret Hamilton, lead software engineer for NASA's Apollo program, poses next to the handwritten code that helped land humanity on the Moon in 1969. Her work was essential to the success of the Apollo 11 mission. Yuri Gagarin, the first human in space, parades through the streets of London in a convertible. The personalized license plate, YG1, celebrates his visit to the United Kingdom on July 11, 1961. The mouth of Dubai Creek in 1978, before the city's transformation into a global skyscraper hub. In the image, low-rise buildings, quiet streets, and traditional boats contrast with modern Dubai. This image shows an automobile equipped with one of the first mobile phone systems in 1924. The device used a large antenna and a bulky transmitter, requiring a dedicated operator for communication. William Harley and Arthur Davidson pose with their Harley-Davidson motorcycles in 1914. Founded a few years earlier, the company was growing rapidly and becoming one of the most iconic motorcycle brands in the United States. Marilyn Monroe films her iconic scene in the 7-Year Itch in New York in 1954. The shoot took place in front of a large crowd of spectators and the press, helping to generate hype for the movie. Mark Twain holds a glowing wireless light bulb in Nikola Tesla's laboratory around 1894. The scene demonstrates Tesla's alternating current technology and the friendship between the writer and the inventor, who admired each other. Michael Diamond and Adam Yauch of Beastie Boys chase Madonna across the stage with water guns at Madison Square Garden. They opened for her for 2 months during the Virgin Tour, Madonna's first solo tour. Frank Sinatra steps off a helicopter holding a drink, photographed by Yul Brynner in 1964. The image captures the singer's extravagant lifestyle, symbolizing Hollywood glamour. German tennis player Karsten Braasch poses with the Williams sisters after defeating them in a challenge at the 1998 Australian Open. They had claimed they could beat any male player, but Braasch, ranked 203rd and hungover, proved otherwise. Snoop Dogg and Cameron Diaz appear in yearbook photos from Long Beach Polytechnic High School. In the 1980s, they attended the same school in California before pursuing music and acting careers. Ben Affleck and Matt Damon call their mothers after winning the Academy Award for Best Original Screenplay for Good Will Hunting in 1997. Childhood friends, they took Hollywood by storm with the film's success. Harold Whittles, 5 years old, was born deaf and heard a sound for the first time in 1974 after receiving a hearing aid. The moment was captured by photographer Jack Bradley, documenting his expression of surprise. A little boy dressed in a suit and hat cries outside the circus at Madison Square Garden, New York, in 1948. Exhausted after the show, his expression contrasts with the sophistication of his outfit. Children drink milk in a school in Madison, Wisconsin, in 1921. Though the school milk program was only implemented during World War II, local initiatives already promoted consumption to improve child nutrition. Engineer and inventor Lonnie Johnson holds an early prototype of the Super Soaker in the early 1980s. A former NASA engineer, Johnson created the popular water gun while working on a cooling system. Baseball player George Herman Ruth, known as Babe Ruth, shows a child how to hold a bat at Yankee Stadium. A sports icon, Ruth inspired generations with his talent and charisma. The aerial view of a busy street in New York highlights the popularity of hats in 1939. At the time, men's fashion practically required the accessory, creating an urban landscape filled with covered heads. Sean Connery autographs a coconut for a Jamaican child during the filming of Dr. No in 1962. The first James Bond film was shot in Jamaica, and Connery enjoyed lighthearted moments with the locals. Marathon runners in the first modern Olympic Games held in Athens in 1896. Without proper sportswear, they ran in casual clothing of the time, including regular shirts and unsuitable footwear. Competitors in the 1980 Space Invaders National Championship. Sponsored by Atari, the tournament was one of the first major esports events, bringing thousands of players together in the United States to compete for the title. This 1974 photo shows two mimes in Central Park. Only 35 years later did the photographer realize that one of them was Robin Williams before fame. At the time, he was studying at Juilliard and performing on the streets. This image shows the arrival of the first bananas in Norway in 1905. The fruit was a novelty for the population, who were not accustomed to food from warm climates. The shipment arrived by ship and was distributed by train. Jimi Hendrix and Mick Jagger chat backstage in 1969. Both were at the height of their careers, shaping the music scene with their unique styles. The image captures a rare moment between two rock legends. The Beatles performed their famous rooftop concert at Applecorms in London on January 30, 1969. It was the band's last live performance, held without warning, surprising fans and pedestrians on the streets below. The first headquarters of Nintendo in Kyoto, Japan in 1889. Founded by Fusajiro Yamauchi, the company initially produced Hanafuda playing cards before becoming a global gaming giant. During the Great Depression, dance marathons became popular as a form of entertainment and endurance. This couple won a competition in Atlantic City after dancing for 1,473 hours, nearly 2 months straight. Kurt Cobain and Chris Novoselic playfully pose on a highway sign near Aberdeen, Cobain's hometown. Their rebellious spirit and friendship shaped Nirvana and the grunge movement of the 1990s. The 2014 Oscar selfie, taken by Bradley Cooper, featured stars like Jennifer Lawrence, Meryl Streep, and Brad Pitt. Posted by Ellen DeGeneres, the image went viral and became the most retweeted tweet of its time. Firefighters wrapped the base of General Sherman, the world's largest tree, with heat-resistant blankets to protect it from a wildfire. Over 2,200 years old, this giant sequoia is located in Sequoia National Park, California. Jesse Owens arrives in London after winning 4 gold medals at the 1936 Berlin Olympics. His victories challenged Nazi propaganda, making him a sports icon. 6th grade students learn how to use dental floss in a public health program at a school in North Carolina, 1975. The initiative promoted oral hygiene among children to prevent cavities and gum diseases. Men dressed in short shorts and cowboy boots serve customers at a drive-thru in Texas in the 1940s. This service was part of a trend of themed restaurants to attract more customers. Some friends have fun in a new car in 1924, which could reach an impressive speed of 25 miles per hour. At the time, that was a considerable speed, making the experience thrilling on underdeveloped roads. Before streaming, record stores offered listening booths like this one in London, 1955. Customers could test new releases in private before deciding whether to buy them, a common experience in the vinyl era. Painters suspended by cables while working on the Brooklyn Bridge, New York, in 1914. Without modern safety equipment, they worked at great heights to maintain the iconic structure, completed in 1883. Walt Disney poses with the original lineup of the Mickey Mouse Club in 1955. The show introduced stars like Annette Funicello and Cubby O'Brien, who became pop culture icons. Michael Jordan during the filming of Space Jam in 1996. The top image shows the motion capture process used to interact with animated characters, while the bottom image reveals the final result with Bugs Bunny. This elevated traffic light was manually operated by a police officer and helped control the growing number of cars and pedestrians. In 1922, New York sought solutions for street chaos before modern traffic signals. A Dior model walks through the Soviet Union, drawing attention with her elegant pink ensemble and refined accessories. The scene was part of the French fashion house's historic visit, a rare cultural exchange during the Cold War. Drew Barrymore helped Stephen King light a cigarette at the premiere of Firestarter in 1984. The movie was an adaptation of the author's book, with Barrymore in the lead role as a girl with supernatural powers. Harry Houdini exposed fraudulent mediums and spiritism tricks by revealing their methods. Here, in 1925, he demonstrates how tables moved on their own, debunking popular hoaxes of the time. An undercover police officer dressed as a woman during an operation in Brooklyn in 1969. At the time, police already used this type of strategy for covert investigations, especially in high-crime neighborhoods. The newly opened M1 motorway near Luton, United Kingdom, photographed on November 11, 1959. Built to connect London to Birmingham, the road appears nearly empty, a stark contrast to the heavy traffic of later years.